One second, this is actually coming. Okay, my name is Jenny Sapienza, and I'm going to be talking about the California wildfires. First off, other than Olivia, who likes national parks? Okay, sweet. It's pretty obvious because you have a Yosemite sticker on it and you talked about Yosemite. I too really enjoy national parks. In fact, over the last 4 years, I have visited over 20 national parks. And the most recent trip that I had, when I moved down from Washington State to California with my dad, I visited 3 national parks. I visited Crater Lake in Oregon. I visited Lawson Volcanic National Park, which is in northern California. That's one that's not super well known. And then I visited Yosemite National Park, which is in central California. Yosemite National Park is known for their great rock structures carved out by the glaciers, especially El Capitan and Half Dome. And when I visited Yosemite, I was really looking forward to seeing these structures. However, I was very disappointed because for the weeks before my visit to Yosemite, fires had been raging across California. And when I came to visit, I was expecting to see these magnificent rock structures on the left. But instead, my phone camera captured what was on the right, which is a very hazy-looking El Capitan. I was very disappointed. So the California wildfires of 2018 were the worst wildfires in California history. In fact, they're getting worse every single year. And the job of the Secretary of the Interior is to keep our citizens of the United States up to date on what is important in environmental policy in the United States and about our public land. And the Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zink, recently said that humans' role in climate change is, quote, unknown. Next goes against what has actually been recently reported in a government-issued climate change in U.S. Global Change Research Program, Climate Science Special Report, that was issued. And it was actually peer-reviewed by some scientists from the Department of the Interior that said that the global temperatures are increasing rapidly, rising sea levels up by 7 inches, and drier climates are occurring, thus the wildfires in California. These California wildfires are actually the worst ever, and this is due to dirty energy sources used by humans, poor human construction choices and industrial choices, and a lack of accountability from our leaders, such as the Secretary of the Interior. First off, the dirty energy sources. Yes, the Earth is heating up, but why and how fast? That's the actual question. Coral Davenport, who's a writer for the New York Times and studies energy and environmental policies, recently wrote in Major Climate Report describes a strong risk of crisis as early as 2040. She claims a catastrophe is going to hit by 2040. When the average global temperature increases by 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually lowered from recently thought 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, sea levels will rise to an unprecedented and catastrophic level. Wildfires and our climates will become so dry that they'll sweep through the United States. Coral reefs will completely die in the oceans, and our ecosystem will just fall apart. Coral Davenport says that this is all due to coal, natural resources, and oil consumption, especially from the United States. The United States is actually the second leading in carbon emissions behind only China. And we all know that China is all hazy from all their carbon emissions. Also, poor human construction choices. I'm not saying that it's just that the California wildfires are due to what China is doing or what other countries are doing, but it's a complete thing of California and California's construction and industrial choices especially. Umar Irfan, a Vox reporter and writer covering energy, writes, California's wildfires are hardly natural. In fact, he argues that California's wildfires are so bad because of the way that California's buildings are so densely clustered together. In fact, 95% of California's population is living on 6% of California's land. Think about that again. 95% of California's people on only 6% of California's land. That's incredibly densely clustered. This is literally adding fuels to the fires of California. Also, the people of California are building on the land that is cheapest, which just so happens to be the most fire-prone land. So just these poor industrial choices that are adding to the wildfires. In fact, I have a picture of Paradise, California. This is one of the worst wildfires of 2018 called the Camp Wildfire. And you can see how all the houses are so closely clustered together that the wildfire is just easily able to sweep through and destroy thousands of homes. In fact, the Camp Wildfire destroyed 10,000 total homes. Finally, there's a lack of accountability on part of our governmental leaders. John Conca, who's a huge environmentalist and studies environmental policies and energy sources, has actually studied this for 33 total years, and he writes on his own synopsis of the climate report that I recently talked about. He explains the leaders' roles in bringing us up to date on what's important and talking about these wildfires and keeping the country informed about these and how important it is to stay on top of these. He talks about how converting to clean energy is a must and how people like the Secretary of the Interior, Ryan Zink, need to hold us accountable and needs to not take the easy way out and start to convert to cleaner energy such as nuclear energy. So my take on what you guys can do about this? Well, Tal Kopin in California Wildfire Aid left out a congressional shutdown deal, which is what I previously talked about in one of my other speeches, the congressional shutdown. There was no wildfire aid for these awful California wildfires because Secretary of the Interior Ryan Zink doesn't believe that they're important and that they're a relevant topic. You guys can write to our governmental leaders. You guys can hold them accountable. I'm actually writing an essay to Secretary of the Interior Ryan Zink to hold him accountable because the next time I walk through the Yosemite Valley, I want to be able to see El Capitan instead of walking over ashes. Thank you.